I'd like to move 9.1, that the board adopt resolution 2016-112, captioned as follows. The resolution is that the mayoral veto of Park Board Resolution 2016-112, reconsideration of the action by which the Park Board passed Resolution 2016-112, resolution approving proposed ballot language for a November 2016 referendum and elements for an agreement with Minneapolis City Council pursuant to Minneapolis City Charter Article 6, Section 6.2, Section J. The question before the Park Board is, shall the action of the Park Board in passing Resolution 2016-112, resolution approving proposed ballot language for a November 2016 referendum and elements for an agreement with the Minneapolis City Council at its regular meeting of January 20th, 2016, be repassed, notwithstanding the objections of the mayor, that the board adopt Resolution 2016-112, captioned as follows. Resolution 2016-12, resolution approving proposed ballot language for a November 2016 referendum and elements for an agreement with the Minneapolis City Council to address sustained current funding to provide a long-term strategy to address the funding gap for annual maintenance, repairs, and capital investments for Minneapolis neighborhood parks.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Forney.
Yes, thank you, President Walensky. I appreciate that the mayor's looked over our resolution, and I understand the concerns that she has of the language, and appreciate that she's articulating those particulars. I guess a couple questions I have is in this back and forth, how is it impacting the schedule of being able to getting this before the City Council?
Commissioner Forney, are you referring to her veto and the action this board needs to take?
Thank you.
Per the charter, if the board, this board wants to override her veto, you have to do it this evening. From a timing perspective, addressing her issues, President Walensky and I have been in ongoing conversations with the mayor for months about the referendum, and we had actually a great meeting with her on Monday, talking about her concerns about the veto, about the referendum, and again, she was very supportive of the work that we've been doing with her, and I think there are technical issues that we just need to work through with her, but she's been very supportive of our efforts around the work for the referendum and supportive of continuing to address the needs in the park system through a referendum.
Wonderful, thank you. I really appreciate also Carol Becker's comments that she made today in that, as far as tweaking the language of holding harmless, I think is something that we really should be taking into consideration. I also really appreciated at the legislative breakfast, there was quite a few people who attended there that would like to insert a stronger, equity language, and I think that we, at least my understanding, is being seriously considered, and I'm very helpful. If you have more insights on that.
Commissioner Forney, President Walensky, yes. Actually, we are proactively working to strengthen the equity language. One of the challenges, I think Diane Loeffler did a really great job of articulating how challenging it is to get ballot language, and some of the specificity that I think people would like to see in the ballot language around equity is going to be really challenging. One of the suggestions that, or avenues that I'm working through, is to work through what we can do in the referendum to in the ballot language to strengthen it. But in addition to that, to actually develop implementation framework and guidelines that drives decisions that Because we can't probably have the level of specificity in the ballot language, that my recommendation probably will be that I bring forward to this board framework and implementation decision-making matrix that includes specificity around equity, as well as other issues, so that if the referendum does pass, that decisions about how we spend that money, there's a framework for that decision-making that includes very specific, detailed language around equity.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Young.
Thank you, President Walensky. My concern is that I do agree with Carol Becker on having the hold harmless agreements, because I'm still feeling now maybe the paper doesn't always interpret things the way we'd like, but it still feels to me like the mayor was thinking of us as a department, and the fact that there was a sentence about her ability that if we get more than the 15 million, then she wants it to be considered back into the pool. And she threw the usual lines of police, fire, public safety in there of concerns for money. And I just wanted to say to the mayor, if there was ever any extra money, we can still use it. This is only kind of, as we're saying, a funding gap, but it doesn't mean that we can't always use more. We have plenty to fix in this system. So I hope that she can remember that we are an independent board, and the citizens, we're what make Minneapolis ticks. A lot of people live here because of the parks and the lakes, and are interested in making sure that they get funded. And so I hope we can get to a good place with the mayor so she understands it's ours and we want it and we need it. Thank you. And thank you, staff, both President Walensky and Superintendent Miller. You've really done outstanding work in the prelude to all of this happening. So it's kind of here at the last draw to make more changes. It's difficult. So thank you very much.
Commissioner Tabb.
Thank you, President Walensky. So what I just want to make sure that I understand the reason that the mayor vetoed this is she didn't necessarily agree that because we were looking at a specific percent as opposed to a dollar amount. Is that correct?
That is one of her issues, yes.
Okay. Any other issues that you want to elaborate on? Or
I would say the other probably significant piece is agreement language to protect our other existing current funding.
Okay.
I think some of it is language that our intent is to work through those issues with her in hopes that we can come to a resolution.
Okay. And I very much appreciate the fact that I think the mayor understands there's a big funding gap, and I appreciate that she understands that and knows that we are, trying to work toward the right thing. But I do believe that if we don't build in some sort of an inflation factor, 14 million or 15 million 20 years from now is not what it is today. And I don't know what, discount rate you want to use, but it's significantly less. And so I think when you think of the kind of work that we will be doing going forward, one of the things that I think we need to make sure that we think about is what it's going to cost us to replace a playground in that 20th year, because we will still be replacing those playgrounds in 20 years, or those putting a roof on that rec center, and it will be a significantly different number than it is in today's dollars. So I feel as if, again, we need that built into the language. I don't know if our particular percentage is the exact right percentage. I hope we have the ability to adjust that as we see the next year information come out. but I think we're darn close. And so I would just implore the mayor to understand, again, where we're coming from. I do understand where she's coming from, that she's got some concerns, but on the other hand, I think if you look 20 years down the road, we're trying to protect the system for a significant period of time, and I think it's very important for us to do so.
Commissioner Bourne.
Thank you, President Walensky. I understand all the concerns that have been expressed by colleagues so far, and I don't disagree with all of them. The one thing that I'm a little bit confused about is that we haven't spoken to this motion or this action yet. I mean, we've talked about the merits or the challenges with a referendum, but the question before us is, are we going to accept or override the mayor's veto? My concern is when I read the mayor's letter, it was very it was certainly an olive branch, and to what other folks have said, a willingness to want to work with the park board and understanding that we do have a capital deficit that needs to be addressed. Every conversation I've had with council members have all said that we have a funding issue that needs to be addressed. And there are multiple ways to get there. A referendum is one. I think I've made it very clear that isn't my first choice. But if it's the only route that the board is willing to go, I won't stand in the way of that. I think the number is just getting to that. I think the answer is getting to that $15 million plus inflation every year, and there's a couple of pathways to make that happen. So what I'm concerned with the actual resolution is I know we have a tradition of overriding mayoral vetoes. I think that would send a pretty bad message if we are all sitting here at this dais saying, yes, we understand and accept that the mayor has some concerns, and we understand and accept that the mayor wants to work with us, and we want to work with the mayor, and then override this veto. I think that sends a message that we don't want to work with our friends at City Hall and our friends at the mayor's office. So I would encourage that we either just take no action on this, and then if I understand that correctly, then the mayor's veto stands, or we oppose this resolution. I think that would send a very good message to the mayor and to the city council that we are interested in having a very serious conversation and that we're open to multiple paths to get to where we need.
Wanted to comment on the budget.
Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I was looking at the cover of the superintendent's annual report and the 2016 annual budget, I see the mayor up front here in the picture with everybody else, and I know Mayor Hodges loves her park system just as much as we do, and it's unfortunate that we have a few small disagreements in the language that we sent forward. I recall years back when we purchased this building, and we voted to purchase this building, and it was a contentious vote. It got sent to the mayor, and the mayor vetoed it. And when it came back to this board, people that had even voted against the purchase of the building voted to override the mayor's veto. It's just kind of one of those things that it's nothing personal to the mayor. That's the way it is. So I think we should move forward with overriding the veto, and we can certainly continue conversations on this matter and see if we can't get it all worked out. But I think it's important that we move forward.
Commissioner Vreeland.
I'd like to call the question.
Okay. Commissioner Bourne.
Point of order. There is no debate allowed.
On a call a question?
Right.
Yeah.
So he's making a point of inquiry. Is that debate?
You will have to rule whether it's appropriate.
And do I still have the floor, Madam Chair?
Is it an inquiry? That's my question.
It's an inquiry about the resolution.
I think you need to have an inquiry about calling the question.
I am curious and you can rule if this is out of order or not, but my inquiry is parliamentary. In our parliamentary procedure, when did the mayor receive notification of this draft resolution before we voted on it? Because I don't recall it coming through committee. I think it came up as unfinished business. So procedurally, did the mayor see this at any other time prior to the board voting on it and sending her the language?
I could answer that question. That would be no, unless she read our agenda ahead of time, because it would have been up on the agenda.
Okay.
So that would be kind of whether her staff did that or not. However, I do know that in the mayor's toolbox, she can either say yes, no, or ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I can't say what her decision-making process was, but those were the tools she had available. She chose to use the veto. Okay, I can't discuss calling the question, but I have to take a vote on it. All in favor of calling the questions, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. We'll call.
Roll call on that, please, Secretary Ringgold.
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Tabb,
Yes.
Commissioner Olson,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Commissioner Bourne,
No.
Vice President Vreeland,
Aye.
President Malinsky.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 1 nay, 1 absent.
All right, now I would like to take a vote on the original motion, and please, again, a roll call.
Sorry, I just had to see if I could find the right form. 1 second. Okay. Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Tabb,
Yes.
Commissioner Olson,
Aye.
Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Forney,
Aye.
Commissioner Bourne,
No.
Vice President Vreeland,
Aye.
President Malinsky.
Aye.
You have 7 ayes, 1 nay, 1 absent.
Thank you. And just for the record, the last previous veto to this one was actually sent back by Mayor Ryback, and it was on the boats and going through the falls, and we didn't override his veto.
And I would note both previous votes required 2/3 and attained.
All right. Moving right along.